Starting with the latest updates from the United Kingdom, voters across the country will head to the polls to choose their local decision makers on Thursday. These elections will be held for all London borough councils, a number of councils and local authorities in Wales and Scotland. Northern Ireland voters will be taking to their polling stations to elect members to the Northern Ireland Assembly. While these elections will decide the local level leaders as well, they will express the voters' opinions on national issues including the cost of living crisis, the ongoing Partygate row and the government's response to the ongoing war in Ukraine. And the latest survey polls have predicted disaster for the Conservative Party. The survey conducted on some 1,700 participants in the 201 councils that will be going to the polls this week suggests that Labour will hold nearly 3,500 seats this time, a gain of more than 800, while the Tories will retain just under 980, a fall of 548 seats. The polls further suggest that the Tories could lose control of the flagship councils. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson sat for an interview with Good Morning Britain and acknowledged that the government could not provide enough support to offset the higher costs immediately.
I accept that those contributions from the taxpayer, because that's what it is, taxpayers' money, isn't going to be enough immediately to help cover everybody's costs. Of course that isn't going to work in
so you
enough
acknowledge
in the
you're
short
not
term.
Doing everything you can.
There is more that we can do.
Yes.
But the crucial thing is to make sure we deal with the prices over the medium. And although you're quite right to point out that there is an inflationary risk and it's very severe, it could get worse. And that knocks onto interest rates and that knocks onto the cost of borrowing for everybody. And I'm sorry to say this, but we have to be prudent in our approach.
And for more on this, our correspondent Giles Gibson is now joining us live from London. Thanks so much for joining us. My first question to you, is the Boris Johnson government worried at all about what could be happening in these local elections and what it signifies for the declining popularity of the Boris Johnson government after facing multiple scandals, especially the Partygate scandal?
Well, Conservative politicians are certainly talking up their chances publicly in terms of these local elections coming up on Thursday. Politicians such as George Eustice, a key member of the cabinet, going out on the radio just a few hours ago saying that voters will trust the Conservatives to keep hold of some of these local councils and to keep running them. But of course, as you say, we have this survey coming out just in the last couple of days, which is saying that the Conservatives could lose almost 500 seats. That would be a really devastating result. And that same survey saying that the Labour Party could recapture or take an additional 800 seats. So that would be an incredibly damaging result for the Conservatives. Really what Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, and of course the leader of the Conservative Party, is looking to do here is to try to prove what he's been saying for some time now, really, that they and the Conservative Party can move on from that Partygate scandal, which has just been hanging over Downing Street and hanging over the Conservative Party for many, many weeks now.
Right, Giles, Boris Johnson is infamous for being a rather resilient leader. We've earlier heard of operations such as Operation Save Big Dog. How likely is it at this point that Johnson will make it past this recent scandal?
Well, look, these are local elections, but voters also do go to the polls with national issues at the front or at least at the back of their minds. So you will certainly have voters who've looked at, for example, his response to the crisis in Ukraine. There's been praise in some quarters here in the UK for the way that Boris Johnson has handled that crisis. For example, you know, the large amounts of military aid that have been sent over to the Ukrainian military. There, of course, has also been criticism over the way that the government has handled the incoming Ukrainian refugees, really just criticism that the process has been too slow given the urgency of the crisis in Ukraine. And I think another national issue that is really going to be at the forefront of voters' minds as they go to the polls here in the UK on Thursday is that cost of living crisis. We just heard that clip from that interview that Boris Johnson gave to Good Morning Britain. He was asked a question about a pensioner who's forced to basically sit on the bus all day because she has a free bus ticket because she can't afford to heat her home. And Boris Johnson's response to that was saying that as London Mayor, he was responsible for bringing in the free bus pass. So that has led to accusations really that Boris Johnson is insensitive about the cost of living crisis, or even just out of touch, that he really doesn't understand the sorts of really tough choices that British voters and British citizens are having to make right now.
Right, Giles, thanks so much for getting us up to date on what's happening in Britain as we speak. Thanks for joining us on WION at this point. WION World is One is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.